Yeah. Now, the chapter 1, it talks about the geographical extension. Of course, it extends to whole of India, but only in case of provisions relating to BDM cigar and plantations. Those provisions are not applicable in Jammu and Kashmir, right? But of course, the status of Jammu and Kashmir also got changed last year. But subsequent to that, whether this will also change or not, we have to wait and see. But currently, as per the provisions, yes, the provisions relating to BDM cigar and plantation alone will not be applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Right. The second section 2 talks about the definitions. In the subsequent slide, maybe I'll discuss about some of the key terms. Right. Again, appropriate government. Yes, it is very important. Normally, if you take again, for example, the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act, this term appropriate government is not defined. Instead, you may have to refer to the Industrial Disputes Act, right? But currently, it is not required. So, because it is defined in this code itself, so for the purpose of all the 13 legislations, it is sufficient if you refer the definition of this code. You need not refer any other act or any other code, unless and otherwise specifically mentioned so, right? Similarly, building and other construction work. It is also currently it is defined under the Building and Other Construction Workers Act. Now it is coming under this particular code. It is included here. And the term contractor, right? I think very key term. Almost the definition for the term contractor is similar to what is given under the present Contract Labor Regulation Abolition Act and the contract labor, right? I think there's a slight change in the contract labor. It specifically includes the interstate migrant workmen. I think the current term contract labor as defined under the Contract Labor Act also includes the interstate migrant workmen, because only the contract workman can become interstate migrant workmen. But I'm not very sure why this has been emphasis has been given, because in this new definition, I think they have specifically included that mentioned that the term would include the interstate migrant workmen also. And more importantly, the second part is it excludes the persons who are regularly employed. Now, what has happened, right or wrong, even because most of the contractors today are legal entities themselves. So they are engaging people, and they are doing the providing service to their principal employers, either specifically appointing people for that or by using the services of their permanent workmen also. Irrespective of whether they are permanent workmen or specifically appointed for this purpose by the contractor, they are all shown as contract labor, right? Technically, there is a difference because of the judgment given by Orissa High Court in Bhakanta Kumar Mohanty case, but still, the practice is like that only. But this code in the definition of the term contract labor very clearly excludes the persons who are engaged on a regular basis by the contractor. So they will not be considered as contract labor. So the point here is the contract labor, if engaged by the contractor on a regular basis, that person will not be considered as contract labor. So that's a major change. Then, of course, the code defines the term employee as well as worker. I'll show you what exactly is the difference. And the employer, here it is again crucial. So who is an employer? Yes, whatever definition given currently under various legislations, it is there. And apart from that, it also includes contractor, right? Definitely the contractor cannot be the person who is managing the affairs of the establishment or the business. So maybe a contractor could be considered as an employer in respect of the persons engaged by him. So it will be a limited purpose, but what is important is contractor is also included in the definition of the term employer. So some of the responsibilities can go to contractor. So some of the liabilities may stop just with the contractor because he is also an employer in respect of the persons engaged by him. Then comes the definition for the term establishment. So this particular code very clearly says if there are 10 or more workers, then that that will become establishment, except mine and dark, because in respect of mines and darks, irrespective of the number, even if it is less than 10, so that will be treated as establishment. Then comes the crucial term industry. So as the given under the Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Board case by the Supreme Court, industry, if the activities are carried on in a regular basis, with the cooperation of the employer and the workers for fulfilling the wishes of the humans. So then if these three ingredients are present, right? So if there is a systematic activity, if it is carried on with the cooperation of the employer and the workers, and if it is to fulfill the wishes or the wants of the human beings, if these three ingredients are present, then that place would be considered as industry. That is the ruling given by the Supreme Court in Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Board case. But somehow we were not able to adopt this in the definition under the ID Act, but now it is brought in through this code. And interstate migrant workmen, again, as I said earlier, only the contract workers, if they are hired from another state to work in a different state through a contractor, right? So only they can become interstate migrant workers. But interestingly, there is a slight change in the definition now. It includes the direct workers also. So not only the workers engaged through or by the contractor, but the workers engaged by the employer directly from other state. There is a scope that they could also become interstate migrant workers. So we may, of course, we have to wait for the rules and other regulations. We have to wait and see how this will operate. I'm not very sure about the specific purpose why the direct workers are also included in the term interstate migrant workmen. I'll move on.